Hello, guys. This is the class I told you that we're going to be using instead of the class of tomorrow. Remember that I won't be able to attend tomorrow's class due to capacitation that I have to go to Santa Fe tomorrow. So the main thing today is that we're going to talk about René Descartes. I'm going to cover the whole contents related to the class, and if there's any questions, you can send them to me via WhatsApp so that I can solve them. So I have prepared a brief presentation that I will be presenting over here. And well, that's it just for now. Let me start. Okay, so as you know, we're right now talking about René Descartes. I told you in class that he's the father of rationalism. Remember that rationalism is this attitude of relying in reason as the main source to determine any system of beliefs in a determined field. This means that reason is going to be the base for any possible knowledge that we're going to construct. If we were to classify what rationalism is going to do, we could say that rationalism is mainly using deduction as its basis to construct knowledge. We're going to explain deduction in a couple of minutes. So right now, if you're watching this video, I would like you to stop my video and go to my YouTube channel and check out this video that on René Descartes. Just take a minute to do that, okay? Well, I'm going to assume that you have already seen this video, and I'm going to pass now to the mind map that I have prepared to all of you. So the main ideas that Descartes is explaining, or the video is explaining, is that René Descartes is mainly known as his method of knowledge, or the method of acquiring knowledge. The main idea that he's going to present in this discourse of the method is that he wants to question facts. He wants to question any possible reality that we're going to be facing. After we question this, we're going to analyze reality. That means to separate it in as many parts as possible, and then we're going to order it, going from the simplest to the more complex. After that, you're going to review in order to check if there are any missing items. We're going to go back to this in a couple of minutes. The main idea by this for Descartes is that he wants to achieve one certainty for reality. The certainty for reality is going to be cogito ergo sum. That means that I think, therefore I am. He's going to get to this point because he thinks that sense are unreliable. This is the main idea that Descartes is going to be presenting in his discourse of the method. Again, I'm going to go back to this in a couple of minutes. Another thing that is important, really important for Descartes, is that he's talking about some sort of solitary end of philosophy, meaning that philosophy mainly has to, as its method in order to acquire knowledge, philosophy is to be developed in solitude, meaning that you can actually philosophize, or the only means that you need in order to philosophize is a quiet bedroom and a quiet place so that you can think and maybe write. For Descartes, reflection is linked to practical life. So in your ordinary life, you must be constantly reflecting. And I think that one part of the most important part of Descartes that we can link to actual knowledge nowadays, that is it's related also to psychology or psychotherapy. He's going to write about the discipline of virtue in his book, the Book of Passions. He says that there are 6 fundamental passions that are wonder, love, hatred, desire, joy, and sadness. If you take a look at his book, what he's saying is propounding a new way to interpret reality, ordering these different passions, and he's not going to say which one is better than the other. He's going to say that through the combination of these 6 fundamental passions, we can determine everything that is going on in this life. So this is just for you to have a brief approach to what you saw in the video. What I'm going to do right now is to keep on explaining the main topics of Descartes, and we're going to cover 2 contents. First, the discourse of the method, and with that I'm going to explain you the 4 steps for the method developed by Descartes, and then we're going to cover the meditations on first philosophy and his radical questioning that is also known as the methodical doubt. And finally, I'm going to provide you with some ideas on how to overcome the radical skepticism that Descartes is presenting. So this is the philosopher that we're going to be studying. Just for you to notice, the dates of his birth and death are these ones: 1596 to 1650. And so I'm going to start with the discourse of the method. So he's going to talk about a way for us to construct knowledge. He says the first thing that we need to do in order to construct knowledge is to analyze its elements. So imagine that you have an object, any object that you want, and when you are going to analyze it, is that you're going to separate it into many different objects. And these different objects, just a minute. Okay, so I'll keep on going. So this object that you're going to be analyzing, you separate it so that you can know it thoroughly. And when you already know it thoroughly, you're going to synthesize it. That means to reconstruct that object. When you do this process of first analysis and then synthesis, you have a better understanding of nature. What Descartes is trying to do with this is to provide a way for you to approach to nature and to reality. If you were to think about an example on this, imagine, for instance, your PS controller, the one you use that you are using for playing on video games. Imagine that this PS controller is not working. So what you do is that you separate it so that you can see what is a problem with it. After you separate it and you take it apart, you realize that maybe it was covered in dust inside. So you just clean it, and after that you put it back together. And when you put it back together, it works again. This obviously presents a mechanical understanding of the world, meaning with this that that nature is going to be understood as an object for us to process, as an object for us to discover, and we as subjects can approach to it and analyze it and then extract from it all the possible knowledge of nature. This later on, when we get to existentialism, is going to present some problems. However, so far, up until this point, you can see that this is actually the way that science is constantly behaving towards nature. Or try to think on different examples. For instance, what medicine does to human being. We are seen as objects, as machines that can be separated, and we can be like, if I have a kidney that is not working properly, the doctor can open me, take away that kidney, bring another kidney, put it back into me, and I will be working perfectly as if I were actually a machine. This is the kind of process of thought that René Descartes is talking about. That's just for me to present to you this first part of his discourse of the method. After saying this, what Descartes is going to talk about is these two different concepts. The first concept is intuition, and second concept is deduction. Intuition, for Descartes, has nothing to do with this feeling that you have when you approach to someone. Intuition for him are some sort of innate ideas, these innate ideas that you have of a particular object. He says, for instance, that intuition are pure concepts that are absolutely rational. And these absolutely rational concepts do not come from ourselves. For instance, try to think about the concept of perfection. We, as imperfect beings, cannot be the origin of the idea of perfection. That is what Descartes is going to say. So he's defending the concept or the idea that we have innate ideas. Therefore, for Descartes, we have knowledge that is already imbued into our head. And with that knowledge that is being imbued into our head, we can, after that, try to remember or try to process the reality with the knowledge that we already have. That is why we need reason. What René Descartes is going to say is that with deduction, we process the knowledge that we already have, and with that we understand how we can get to conclusions with logic in order to understand nature, to interpret nature. This is going to be conflicted. These two concepts are going to be conflicted in a couple of minutes because for instance, René Descartes is going to talk about, he's going to doubt about the question, the existence of God. So what I would like you just to realize here is that René Descartes is presenting some sort of a concept of a God, but it's a rational God that is only given us the main ideas to be imbued into our head. And with that, what we're going to do is to reason in order to understand nature. If you have questions on this, I will be glad, really glad to help you solve them. This is kind of a complicated issue on René Descartes' ideas. So I'm going to move on from this topic, hoping that we can work this out together in the following class. So I'm going to explain to you now the way that René Descartes is presenting a possibility of analyzing knowledge. He's going to talk about these 4 rules for understanding. The first rule of understanding by Descartes is, do not take as truth anything that is not true evidently. Second one is, separate each problem in as many parts as possible. Then you should order thoughts from the more simplest to the most complex. And finally, review in order to be sure not to omit anything. These 4 rules for understanding will lead you to question reality, and after you question reality, you will be able to have a thorough understanding or a better understanding of what reality is. You can actually use these 4 rules of understanding for any particular cases or practical cases. So I wouldn't like you to think that René Descartes is only thinking about nature and reason. I would also like you to think that René Descartes is presenting a way for you to understand what is practical and ordinary for you. So in order for us to understand this, I'm going to present you with a case that is really common to everyone. So imagine that is any Friday night and you suddenly receive a phone call by this special someone, this boyfriend or girlfriend, and she tells you this horrible phrase, "We need to talk." So you can immediately, after hearing this, assume a couple of things. Usually, the phrase "we need to talk" means that the other person wants to break up with you, or maybe there's some other implications. What René Descartes says, and this first statement, is that you should not take as truth anything that you don't know that is true evidently. So the first thing that he would say is, even though you have this natural attitude towards thinking that that this person may want to break up with you, you should question, because maybe what you are assuming is not true. After you do this questioning, the next scenario or the next thing to do is to analyze if there are different possible implications. So let's imagine that maybe instead of wanting to break up with you, she wants to tell you that she's pregnant, or that she's moving out of town, or that she cheated on you, or maybe someone in her family died, or she's mad at you, or maybe she's really happy and wants to plan a vacation. All these are possible implications or possible causes related to the phrase "we need to talk." So what René Descartes is saying over here is that we should stop the judgment in one particular moment and then go to this analysis. After you go to this analysis, what he says is that you should order it from the most simplest to the complex. So I have presented over here an order that I did in my head. So I would say that the most simplest is that the simplest is when she tells you that she's really happy with you. So that wouldn't lead to any different conclusions, or it wouldn't be anything complicated. Or maybe it's a bit more complicated if she wants to plan vacation. It's not that difficult. Or I think that it would be at least a bit more complex if she's mad at you. Then you have to talk about like what makes the other person mad and how you can solve and work out the problems. I think that maybe the other one that is more complex is moving out of town, or maybe then after that she cheated on you, or maybe someone in her family died, or maybe that she's pregnant. Again, this is just an order that I'm propounding. Obviously, you can think about different orders for this. You have different values. And finally, what Descartes would say, if we follow the scenario that I presented a couple of minutes ago, he would say that maybe there are some other options, and maybe she's mad at you, yes, but because of you, because you forgot the anniversary. So this is just a way for me to present to all of you a way to use René Descartes, the method of constructing knowledge, not only to get to these universal truths that we constantly see in philosophy, but also a way for you to see how Rene Descartes can actually give you a hint on how to use philosophy into your ordinary life. Okay, so with this, I hope you've got an idea of what Rene Descartes is doing, and I'm going to follow up now to the methodical doubt that he's presenting in his Meditations on First Philosophy. So in his Meditations on First Philosophy, I know that you read it because we already had a quiz on it. What he's doing is that he's in a quest for an absolute certainty. He's going to present a questioning of reality that is going to be so thorough, so deep, that he wants to find at least one certainty in the whole world. For this, he wants to overcome the skeptical inquiries that try to deny all possible knowledge. And for this, in his methodical doubt, he's going to present 4 levels of doubt. The first one, that is senses; second one, dreams; third one, powerless God; and then evil geniuses. I'm going to explain each one of these so that you have better understanding on the Meditations of First Philosophy. So the first thing that René Descartes says is that we should not rely on our senses in order to construct knowledge. He says that our senses are going to bring us empirical knowledge, and empirical knowledge can lead us to mistaken conclusions. If we have mistaken conclusions, we are not sure of any causal relationships. Therefore, we cannot prove data. This this image that I'm presenting to all of you right now, you see in this video that there is this image of a woman that is turning in one particular side to the other one. So some of you may be able to watch these women turning to the right. Some of you may be able to see these women turning to the left. Actually, this is a trick presented to all of you. Some of you may even be able to make her switch left or right. This depends on the part of your brain you're using in order to construct, to approach to this image. What I'm trying to prove with this is the fact that an image that is perceived by you, that is perceived by your senses, can be actually tricking you, because some of you are going to see her turning to one side, some of you are going to see her turning to the other side. And this is a way just to prove that our senses are not reliable in order to construct knowledge. After doing this, what René Descartes says is that if our senses are not a guarantee for knowledge, then we should not use them as a way to acquire any possible ideas on how the world works. This is immediately against any possible construction on science. So let's keep on going with the methodical doubt that he's presenting. After this, what René Descartes says is that we cannot be sure, actually, if we're dreaming or awake. The problem here, he says, is that sometimes we dream, and when we dream, we have sensitive data. And this sensitive data can be so stimulating that we actually believe that we're dreaming is real. I've given you some examples during class time about this, but also just if you forgot these examples, I just want to give you another idea. Try to think about this time when you were dreaming, having a nightmare, and you were dreaming that someone was like pursuing you after you watch a horror movie, and you feel like this horror monster is at your place trying to catch you. You feel so agitated that you wake up. So what René Descartes is saying is that we don't have guarantee of being awake or that we are dreaming, because sensitive data cannot be even the guarantee to prove that we are actually awake. Because while we're dreaming, we can experience sensitive data that we can actually believe it is real. After saying this, René Descartes is going to be even more radical on his questioning, because usually at this point we say that God is or in the medieval ages, what they used to say is that God was the ultimate guarantee for reality. So what René Descartes is doing over here is that he's going to question the idea of God. And he says that if God is an hypothesis to guarantee our existence, then we should think that maybe God is absolutely good and his power is limited. However, what we see in reality is that sometimes God is not able to prevent humankind from committing mistakes. If God is not able to prevent us to committing some mistakes, that means that God is not useful as a guarantee for reality, because God would not be as powerful so that he can actually overcome overcome evil. So with this, what René Descartes is saying is that not only God is powerless, but also the ideas that God is presenting may not be the ultimate guarantee for our knowledge. Now he's going to be even more radical on what he's presenting. So he's going to say that maybe there is a God, and maybe this God is absolutely powerful, but this God is an evil genius. And what he's doing with this evil genius is he's having fun with us, and he's constantly fooling us. If he's constantly fooling us, then we cannot even be sure of some ideas such as arithmetics or math, because maybe this God is making us believe that 2 plus 2 equals 4, while in reality 2 plus 2 equals 7 or 10, or maybe the concept of the number 2 does not even exist, because he thinks that there's a possibility of this God saying that, or just being just fooling us. What I would like you to see with this is that René Descartes is presenting a really radical questioning on reality. And this radical questioning is leading us to acquire at least one knowledge. And that's his main quest on this on this discourse of the method. He's going to say, for instance, that the only guarantee that we have is that we think, and because we think, we exist. You already know this because you already read the Meditations on First Philosophy. He says, the fact that I am thinking, or the fact that I am questioning if something exists or does not exist, means that I have some existence. Maybe I do not exist the way I perceive myself. Maybe I am actually a brain in a basket. But I need to have certain existence in order to be able to question reality. If I don't have any existence, then it is not possible for me to question reality. So that is how he gets to this famous quote, I think, therefore I am. He's not going to say that we have the existence we think we have, but at least we exist. And that is the axis of all his ideas, of everything that he's going to construct later on, because at least we know something, that we exist. So after saying that, you can see that Descartes, what he has done is that he has presented a really radical questioning, and it is so radical that he has get to this point in which we cannot be sure about anything. And the only thing that we can actually be sure of is that we have certain existence. So what I'm going to say, to present to all of you now, is the way that Descartes is overcoming this radical questioning. So Descartes says that if we stay in the methodical doubt, if we stay in the 4 levels of doubt that are senses, dreams, powerless God, evil genius, and even questioning the existence of maths and all these sciences, what we have is that the guarantee that there is no knowledge. This is known as radical skepticism. You may remember this radical skepticism also when we were studying Gorgias in the Sophist. He was saying also that no knowledge was possible. Then Descartes is going to present the possibility of having one guarantee of reality, that is self-existence. The only thing that I can be sure of is that I do exist. So right now I am presenting a video to all of you, and I can actually imagine that this video that I am presenting to all of you was my only contact with reality. Maybe I am always talking to my computer, and you are just simulations that my computer is presenting to me, so that I think that any other things exist. Or that's like the only thing that Descartes is saying. What we know is that we exist. That's the only point that we can get to. So after saying this, what René Descartes is going to talk about is that the fact that we doubt means that I exist, but there is at least another existence that must be out there, and this is the moment when he's going to present the concept of innate ideas that I explained a couple of slides earlier. He said that there are some ideas that cannot proceed from me. For instance, I am an imperfect being, and I am an imperfect being because I can see that I am full of flaws. However, I have the concept of perfection inside of my head. I can think about at least the concept, even though I cannot actualize it. I have it over here in my head. And all of you that are listening to me, when I tell you that something is perfect, you can at least think about the concept. If we are not perfect, then what he says is that I cannot be the origin of that idea. Then that means that there is another existence that gave those ideas to me. He's going to say that that existence is God. Even though we may not agree with his idea, what he's doing is precisely providing a method on how to understand reality. Remember that his methodical doubt that we studied in the discourse of the method, the idea was for him to analyze, that is, separate the whole concept of reality, and then come back and put it all together so that you can have at least some knowledge of something. So even though we may not agree with his solution, that is the idea of a God that is going to be the guarantee of knowledge, what we can see, or what we can know that is really important about his idea, about his philosophy, is the way he presents a method in order to interpret reality, and from that interpretation, acquiring different knowledge. So that's it with the presentation that I have for all of you. Hope this has been clear to all of you. And if you have any more questions, please make sure to send them to me via WhatsApp. And please watch this video. And after this, we're going to comment and take some of these ideas on our next class. That's it for today. Enjoy your afternoon.